Good afternoon, my friends. How are y'all doing? I wanted to make a video in response to a comment. There was a really good question. The guy asked, what do you do when you get zero feedback whatsoever? Like, nobody's telling you that what you're playing is great. Nobody's telling you that it needs to change. You're just kind of sitting out there in your own little boat of insecurity. That wasn't the words in his comment. But first, I want to say thanks for all the support. And if you haven't checked them out, I've got a couple courses available that just deal with guitar playing from a creative perspective, how to create things that are compelling and useful and that make you more marketable as a player. Not only in the sense like if you're trying to do this for a living or make money, but marketable in the sense that, you know, maybe you want to start playing with other people. Like, what do you need to think about? How do you think about music from a musician's perspective who plays guitar, and less from like a guitar player's perspective who just kind of absorbs a bunch of licks and very guitar player specific content all day. So I'm trying to aim a little bigger outside of just, you know, here's guitar content, like here's musician content that's going to make other musicians really like you and want to play with you. So that's the idea. So I was asked on a song that I just cut on to add a slide solo. So I've been sort of practicing slide. I haven't played slide in a long time, and if you've watched my channel for a while, you know that I have tried to cultivate my slide playing on any guitar, all the guitars I have. So I've got a 335 here. This is my 82. This is a fantastic instrument. You can see how low my action is. Like it's pretty whisper quiet action, but you know, I've always wanted to be able to play slide on every guitar I have. So it's important to me to go back to some of these guitars that are set up real low and just get that feel back for making it able to speak, you know. So this is where I'm at. My favorite tuning to play slide in is double dropped D, okay? Maybe I can tune that a little better. I mean, you're tuning, yeah. Do you ever play like kind of hybrid, you know, where you're using your fingers and slide? Yeah, I got a little more work I could do on the old slide playing, especially on a super low action guitar. So let's get to the question. What do you do when you get no feedback? I've been in this situation multiple times, and it really threw me off the first time. You know, when you are when you're a new session player, younger guy coming in, and you are just really trying to establish yourself, it's really easy to feel like you got to save the day every single time. And, you know, people will react differently to someone new who has something really cool going on, right? Because it's fresh to them. You know, I mean, this is such a small community. There's like, I don't know. I feel like when I got in, there were 5 or 6 guys that were doing the bulk of the work. Now I'm kind of one of those 5 or 6 guys, and there's new guys coming up behind us, you know, and it's just a continual cycle, right? So when somebody comes up and does something really cool, you can get some pretty big reactions right away, like almost kind of consistently, you know? And then the first time that doesn't happen, you're like, oh, what'd I do wrong? Oh no. And it just eats at you. And you're going to bed that night and you're like, did I do what? Why didn't they react, you know? And really, like, you're so focused on what you're doing that you're not able to see the bigger picture, right? Like, this entire thing of being in a band, you know, that playing sessions applies, right? Like, we're a band, we're trying to make these songs that we're being hired to play on as great as we can, you know? And that requires all the ingredients working together, right? So you can't have like say the guitar player is kind of the salt. Well, if you have salt everywhere, it's going to be a lot. It's like a little much, you know. This isn't your record, right? This is not you're not. It's not featuring Guitar Guy, you know, on this young 20-something pop country female singer's record, right? Like, so kind of you need to understand what kind of situation you're walking into. I mean, we're not the songwriters. We can suggest changes that we think might be more helpful or more relevant to the current situation that we're in music. But, you know, I think of the songwriters as the ones building the house, and I think of the musicians as the ones, like, we're hanging curtains and doing finish carpentry. Like, we can really make a great house look ultra professional, right? Like, really desirable, really homey and inviting and cool. What we can't do is, like, change the foundation, you know? So if you have the perspective of where what you can do and what you can't do, then I think that's a better place for you to be when you get to the point where you're just not getting any feedback. Well, also, you could pay attention, you know, like, who is getting the feedback and why are they getting it? Well, one of my first times ever not getting any feedback, it's because somebody else was getting all of it. And it wasn't because it was like, hey, this person's the MVP and they're so great and amazing. It's like, no, the producer actually plays the same instrument as them, and so they've got a lot more ideas specific to that chair, right? And so it's almost always the case. Like, if your producer is a big guitar player, you know, like, some of them really are, like Huff, and there's some younger guys, Chris LaCourte, and you know, Paul Sykes is a great guitar player and a producer. I'm just gonna blank. There's so many, right? Chris Locke. They're gonna have very specific ideas for what they want the guitar parts to be, and sometimes they've got somebody else there because they're sick of their ideas. So do your thing. You're hired to do your thing. But, you know, it makes sense that somebody who's spent their time playing an instrument and getting really good at it themselves is going to have ideas, or when they have an idea, it's related to that same chair in the band, you know. So maybe it's a good thing that you're not getting feedback, because they're not trying to fix what you're doing. You know, that's the other thing. Maybe somebody else is out of tune. Like, think of the feedback they're getting. If it's not all if it's not all positive, if it's all like, hey, we need to change this, or could you check your tuning, or hey, do you have enough click track, or can we change the feel? That doesn't really work with the pocket of the vocals and all that. If you're not getting anything like that, that's good, you know. I've been on sessions where I don't get any feedback in the moment. And some players really don't do well with that. Like some guys that I'm in the room with, they will say, hey, this thing that I'm doing, I'm doing it because of this, and this is why I like it, and I just wanted to make sure that you're okay with it. And it was like, man, they would have said something, you know? Like, do you not trust the ears of the people who hired you? You don't need to constantly explain where you're coming from and constantly give an apology for what you're doing, or a defense of where it's coming from or whatever. If it's not right to somebody, to the people writing the check or to the person whose band it is or whatever, they're gonna let you know, you know. I haven't really been in a situation where I was working for someone who just decided, I don't know, I could see this outside of the scene. In the scene in Nashville, like everybody's operating at a pretty high level. That's just the reality of it. But maybe you're in a town somewhere and you've got an artist who is not a great communicator, hates confrontation. So rather than say anything, they're just gonna be quiet until it comes to a head, and then you don't work for them anymore or play in their band anymore. You probably don't want to be in that situation anyway, you know? Like that's, I don't know. I've heard from some of y'all in the comments and just other guitar players who have approached me with questions or whatever, that can be a thing, you know. And what I find myself hearing, what I find myself thinking is like, you're describing a situation I would never want to be a part of. Like, why are you so worried about like not being in that situation, you know? And maybe it's the only thing going on for Miles for your style of playing. Well, then you kind of gotta you got a question to ask yourself, like, how far am I willing to take this? And how far do I need to move to make that happen? I mean, when I decided I had to try to do this for a living, I thought you had to move to LA. I thought all the guitar players were in LA. I thought country was like bolo ties and just dead clean tellies through twins with compressors, and that's it, you know? I was wildly ignorant. This was like 2004 or 5. It was 2005 that I decided I had to try. I gotta try. And give like a real try, you know, not a halfway thing, not a, well, I moved somewhere and nothing happened to me in my career, so I guess that's good. Like, that wouldn't be good enough in the back of my mind. I would still, you know, I'd still be sitting there wondering, like, could it have happened? I had to give a try that I knew I could be proud of just the effort, even if nothing happened. So that involved moving to a music town. That involved starting from zero and swallowing all the fears that I had. Like, I remember moving here, I was 25, 26. And I remember realizing, wait a minute, there's a university here where people graduate with guitar player degrees at the age of 22 and they know a bunch of people in the industry already. What did I do? You know, or I went downtown and watched, I think it was J.D. Simo at the time. I saw him, I saw James Mitchell, I saw Kenny Vaughn, and I saw them play stuff that I just didn't know. And I was like, what am I doing here? I don't do that. Holy cow, you know? So what do I do? How can I make that valuable? Okay, so maybe I need to go to writers' rounds. Maybe I need to meet artists that play the kind of music that is my strength, you know? So more Americana, yes, a little bit of country. I had to give myself a crash course in that early on. I grew up on Zeppelin and ZZ Top, and early Pearl Jam, stuff like that, and Stevie Ray Vaughan. I mean, so for me, it involved moving to a place I didn't know anybody and starting from zero and from absolutely nothing. I didn't know a single person. I would go out to clubs and I would introduce myself and just tell people they sounded great. And I did a video a while back about playing the song Tush right in front of Billy Gibbons, and he had already been kind of bothered by a bunch of people in the club, and so he was like, man, I don't want to make this all about me, and he left, and I don't begrudge him at all. And I got that gig with that artist because somebody bailed on her while I was standing in the club next to her. And I tapped her on the shoulder and was like, hey, I know you don't know me, but I'm super comfortable with this kind of music. I do all my homework. I'm brand new. I've been wanting to do something like this since I got here, like a month ago or whatever. And she took a chance on me, and it worked out great. And so, yeah. But not getting any feedback is not necessarily a bad thing, but your mind wants to go there. You want to think, oh, they don't like me, they don't like what I played. I mean, sometimes you've played something super emotional and vulnerable, and for you, it's like you cut out your heart and you offered it to them, the rest of the band, or the producer, or the songwriter, or the artist, or whatever, and you're like, I mean, you're having like an emotional moment where everything's connecting, and then they're just kind of like, I don't know. What if you tried something different? That just feels like you've been punched in the gut, But you have to get to a place where, once again, you realize you're the help. I mean, I might play sessions. I might play on big records in Nashville. I'm still the help. I mean, it's Tom put it a great way several years ago. He's like, I drive a work truck to work. I go into work, I examine the problem, I go back to the truck and get the tools that will help me solve that problem. It's very much like being a plumber, except it's music, and music is this amazing gift that lets us communicate and express things when we don't have the words for it, and it helps us rearrange the things inside of us that get twisted up. Like it's such a form of communication and a pressure release valve all at the same time, and you can really get wrapped personally into how people respond to your playing, and you have to not do that. You have to fight that. I didn't know how to do that. It just, I don't know if I learned it or if I just slowly grew a callus over my heart, I mean, I remember having a couple of those moments, or I heard somebody thought, some writer or something, somebody thought that I was super, they just didn't like me. They're like, can we get somebody else? And they thought I was really, like I was not easy to work with. Like anytime from their perspective, anytime they had asked me to play something, I didn't do it. Like I was butting heads, like not a team player, I think was kind of the vibe. And it mortified me because I had no clue what they were talking about. Absolutely no idea. And I remember getting in the room with that person months later. It wasn't their session. They came in as a co-writer. And I made it a point when we got to that song to say, hey, do you have any ideas? I have an idea what I want to do, but I wanted to check with you. I know you're a guitar player as well. And so do you have something in your mind for how you think this should go for me? And I think, it was through the glass. I was out in the in the tracking room. They were in the control room. I think that worked to smooth things over, because I did see that person. I have seen that person a few more times since then. You know, not on a regular basis, but it's I don't know. Maybe they still request somebody else when they get the chance. But it seemed like that helped. You know, because all I have is my reputation in the town and the records that are out there that have my name attached to them. You know, I mean, I've seen players, incredible players, just they're so prickly and they're so they just big time everybody else in the room. I feel like that used to work back in like the 80s and 90s. I don't know. Maybe it's because it's kind of a New York thing or an LA thing, and that's where a lot of this, you know, a lot of records were made. It just doesn't work here. You know, if you are hard to get along with, if you're hard to communicate with, if you have to be explained to multiple times what the producer wants and you don't do a good job of deciphering it, and if you are very quick to feel slighted in some way or unappreciated and you kind of wear that on your shoulder, it's just not going to work. It's not going to work. You're not going to go where you want to go. So there's a lot of just being the help that will go a long way. Just understanding that you're in a service industry. You're not getting any attention, that's fine. They'll give you attention if they need you to change something. If they don't need you to change something, but in their mind, they're like, well, I really need to make sure that this drummer gets this right. Guitar, bass, keys, they're all doing great, but holy cow, I'm trying to get this, and that's what they're zeroed in on every time they hear the band take a pass, then that's great. You don't need to pop up and say, hey, what about what I'm doing? I really think that it works because of this, and this is what I was thinking, and you had said this earlier, so I thought that it would be a good idea, and all this. Like, that comes across just super insecure. It really does. So, you know, the no feedback thing, I get it. It takes a while to get through. Try to gauge why you're not getting any feedback. Is it because they're far more worried about somebody else? Is it because I mean, there's so many reasons. The very least likely reason is that they just don't like you and they don't want to tell you. And that's where your mind goes. And you gotta get over it. You really do. So I would say keep doing what you're doing. Practice always cures confidence. I know this is a little bit of a different kind of confidence because it's more relational, it's more interpersonal. It's how you are communicating and being communicated to, or not receiving any communication on a session or in a rehearsal or at a gig or whatever. You know, if you feel like you're getting the cold shoulder, I mean, you might be right. I think in a very rare amount of cases, you know. I just watched a video where Billy Strings was talking about how the bluegrass crowd is ultra gatekeepy. And I was like, wow, I guess I could see that, you know. I don't know. That's kind of brutal too. So I would, if you feel like that's happening in that situation, then ask yourself how much you really want to be a part of that situation. You know, how much do you really want to be there if that's what it's going to be like? And find something else. So anyway, that's all I got. Hope you guys are doing well. I'll talk to you soon.